We have a very special guest alert on today's show. We are bringing on Chargers star running back Austin Ekeler after his great performance against the Dolphins and to talk about his new high-powered rushing attack under Kellen Moore.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen, and to make sure you never miss the show, like Austin Ekeler coming on today's show, make sure to go follow or subscribe on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, it's our first ever reoccurring player guest on the show. Chargers running back Austin Ekeler is going to join us. That's going to be a fun conversation. Then we get into some questions. Is Staley's defense too complicated? And Atheer's rant. My goodness, you have to hear it. He is saying that Kellen Moore is the reason the Chargers lost to the Dolphins on Sunday.
I mean, if Atheer is saying it, you got to at least listen. But no, I'm very excited for Atheer's rant. He definitely brings it today. But today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. All right, guys. Well, here he is, Chargers running back Austin Ekeler. All right, guys, well, we have a very special guest here today, the only Chargers player that's been able to come back on the show a second time. We have Austin Ekeler on the show today, and hey, man, I know everyone saw you get a little banged up in the game, so I just want to say, hey, right now, how is the ankle feeling for all the Chargers fans out there wondering?
It started out hot. All right, get right to the point. That's how we do it around here. First of all, thanks for having me back on.
Of course.
Yeah, I see the rep and the Charger love. I like it. Got the Gage jersey. We got every hat that's ever been possibly made in the back over here on David's screen. I like it. But yeah, man, week 1, we came out swinging. I think so. There was some good and some bad in there. Obviously, I ended up getting banged up a little bit there, my ankle there at the end of the game. And, it's part of football. And unfortunately, we kind of saw with, Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff, right? Nobody is safe from injury in the NFL, and when you get the ball in your hand a lot, guess what? You as well are not safe. And so, yeah, I ended up, messing up my ankle a little bit. But, it's one of those things where we try to get back as soon as we can. And hopefully you're not, out at all. And if you are out, hopefully, hey, it's not too long.
Absolutely. And we're hoping that you get back as quickly as possible whenever that is. You have partnered with FedEx as part of the Aaron Brown NFL Player of the Week award that you've definitely won a few times there. And an award you should win this year this week with the 55-yard run and the 35-yard reception against the Dolphins. What were the reasons that you decided to team up with FedEx?
Yeah, it goes deeper than just FedEx in general. Really, a big part of my life has been continuing to give back and making sure that, hey, like my efforts are, yes, progressing the things that I have in my life, but let me have some type of portion of that also is helping others. And that's really been playing itself out, through my foundation, through my Discord, through my streams, through my giveaways, through my fantasy football stuff. And also now really started to play a part into people that I team up with. And so, that's one of the reasons teaming up with FedEx with their air and ground NFL awards that they do every single week. It's in the category of giving back to the community. And so they'll be donating $100,000 to HBCUs this year. And they do that by selecting the air and ground, FedEx Player of the Week, which I'm nominated for. So make sure you vote for me. You can vote at NFL.com/FedEx and make sure you vote for your boy representing this first week. But really, it's an opportunity for us to give back in a combined way and combine our efforts and really bring more opportunities to places where we see fit. And so really looking forward to being not only connected with FedEx, on that side, but also be winning the awards at the same time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Prime's doing a pretty good job of showing how many good players are at those HBCUs too. And Chargers have a couple as well, undrafted free agent this year, Andrew Farmer. But I do want to talk about just the game, obviously, the season, the way it ended last year. And then, you're looking so much forward to getting that first win, getting back on track. It doesn't happen. So how important do you think it is for this team to kind of go on a run to give you guys that confidence that you are a good team and you can still do something special in 2023?
Yeah. In the NFL, you're judged on winning and losing. That's the NFL. They don't care if we lost every single game by 2 points, people would say that this team sucked, right?
Yeah.
They don't matter. It doesn't matter how you win, or if you lost like, the Giants did by 40, like it doesn't matter. It's a loss. Like they can come back and win by 40 next week. I think 2 years ago when we were making our playoff run with Herb and Joe and Staley's first year, I think we lost to the Ravens like 42-7 or something like that. But at the end, we're right there getting ready for, a playoff win, and ended up losing when the Raiders kicked a field goal on us instead of taking a knee. But that's a different conversation. And so like, it's not everything, to make sure that, oh yeah, you win the first game, you win every single game, but obviously you don't want to lose any games. But it's good to see, I think our offense is playing at a high level. We need to get our defense rolling a little bit. Offense, we can still clean up some stuff. At the end of the game, our 2-minute drive wasn't that great to go and seal it and give ourselves a chance to win with a field goal. And so that's football. That's what makes it so great. There's so many different variances of it, but I like where we're at right now. And I'm glad we didn't lose by 40.
Me too.
That is a different feeling than losing by 2 for sure.
Yeah, obviously offensively, like you mentioned, you guys kind of didn't really end the way you really wanted to, but overall the offense looked fantastic under new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And considering it was only the first game, do you guys think you have a chance to be even better than what we saw on Sunday?
Ooh, that's a great question, because it's like, how do you define what is better? Because it's not black and white, right? Like, is better scoring 40 points next week, or scoring more than 34, or is it just winning the game? So yes, want to be better, but I think it's more of a philosophical question of like perspective, like what is better? Because I'm going to come out, I'm going to try to play as consistent as I possibly can. And I know the rest of my teammates are as well, but there's going to be new challenges that are in front of us. So we're not going to be able to, compare apples to apples necessarily. So I would say based off of the conversation I just had a little bit before this, we need to play better because we need to win. So whatever, if we win, then yes, we played better. If we lose, we didn't play better. That's kind of how it goes. So we need to play better.
It's definitely fair.
Well, we'll be quick with this last one because I know you got to get out of here, but you were calling for a long time for another running back behind you to kind of step up and take that mantle of RB2. And it feels like Joshua Kelley's done that, and he had a great game, probably his best game as a Charger in this last game. What have you seen from him over his few years since when he started in 2020?
Yeah, man, this guy's been making some strides, and it's showing up. It's showing up in the preseason when we had like record-breaking preseason rushing numbers. And there's been the stigma around our building where it's like, hey, like we can't run the ball. Why can't we run the ball? Let's run the ball. And so guess what we did? Dang it, we ran the flipping ball. And that's why I got to remind you to go freaking vote for me on NFL.com/FedEx, for ground player of the week, so I can help, provide some scholarships out here. But right now, when it comes down to running the ball and getting this ground game established, I think it's so important for us because we know the receivers that we have. So we know we're going to be able to throw it. And, you're going to have games where you're going to lean heavily on one or the other based off of the defense you're facing. And, when you're playing a cover 8 team like we saw last week, your running backs and tight ends got to come alive.
Well, a special thank you to Austin Ekeler. We ended up having a space issue on the Zoom call, actually, and he had a super busy day, so it got cut a little short, but we're definitely going to try to have him on again. Very interesting to hear what he had to say about this team and that ankle specifically. Going to see what happens with him this week on the injury report. But the good news is it's a Chargers mailbag day, and we have a lot of good questions to get into, like is Brandon Staley's defense too complicated? Because the best stretch they had last year was when they were missing a lot of their star players, and I don't necessarily think that's a coincidence. So we're going to get into that and many more great questions coming up right after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys about eBay Motors because our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are a guaranteed fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. I think you guys are going to like this one. If you're looking for a sweet matchup to exploit for a big game at wide receiver in week 2, Turn to the Chargers, Mike Williams. Williams was quiet and banged up in the run-heavy opener against Miami in Week 1, but he draws a beautiful spot against a Titans secondary which struggled to handle any of the Saints receivers downfield, including Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Look for Justin Herbert to hit on at least one big scoring play to big Mike Williams. David, I know that we're definitely hoping for that. I mean, Mike only had 4 catches, 45 yards against the Dolphins, but I know me and you are hoping that we see a more vertical offense. We saw so much of that in training camp, and hopefully now that it makes more sense, we can see it this week against the Titans. Kellen Moore definitely had a great game plan for the Dolphins, but I definitely like Mike Williams to have a big bounce back week this week. I mean, we know if you throw up a 50-50 ball to Mike Williams, at least you're probably talking about a 70-30 ball. But Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED lights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, well, it's time to get into this Chargers mailbag. Thank you to everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter, and also everyone who called in the voicemail like Atheer at 323-524-7924. You leave a 30-second voicemail there, it's likely to get on the show, but Atheer needed a little bit more time. But hey, it's hard for us. Anything over a minute, got to be quick. And you can't just be firing people every day because there's only so much we can talk about people getting fired. But we do want to start with this one from Abria Writes on X or Twitter, who asks, do you think that Staley complicates his defensive scheme? Well, we know he does, right? I think the question here is actually, does he overcomplicate it, right? Like, he wants to be complex. He wants to confuse opposing offenses. He wants to do all these things. But I think there is a good case to be made, David, that maybe this thing is a little too complicated, because now we're in year 3 and it still feels like the guys out on the field aren't doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah, so I mean, I do think there is some credence to this as well. I mean, when you look back at the Chargers last year and when they played their absolute best form of defense, it was when those game plans were a little more simplified and you didn't have all of your stars out there to kind of lean on and be able to get super complex. But I think maybe that could be something that the Chargers can learn from, and maybe they can simplify things a little bit more and, you know, just utilize those weapons that you have on the defensive side. You have a ton of very good players. Maybe just say, hey, this is what I need you to do. Go out there and do it at a high level, and then let's see where the cards fall after that. I think that might be a better game plan, just because, hey, when you have to think about all these different things at once, it's hard to be able to do all of those things at a high level.
It's kind of the Gus Bradley thing, right? Because Gus Bradley had a very non-complicated defense running the cover 3, and the reason he did it, at least partially, was so the defense could play fast. Doesn't feel like the Chargers defense is always playing fast, and this is not a, you know, something saying, hey, bring back Gus Bradley, because we had our issues with Gus Bradley then, right?
Yeah.
Like, but still, you can't argue with the numbers that Brandon Staley's defense has had over his first couple of years. The best stretch of the season last year, I mean, let's talk about the one game, right? The Dolphins game last year. You were missing Derwin James. You were missing Joey Bosa. You were missing Jace Jackson. And you had maybe the best defensive performance of the season. Like, they absolutely undressed Mike McDaniel in that game. Now, this year, you flip over the page, and they get smoked with all of their best players out there, the healthiest they're going to be all season.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, hey, yeah, I mean, there probably is something to this. I know, you know, going pattern match zone and doing the more complicated things that he likes to do and disguises he likes to do, in theory, they work great.
Yeah.
When you have Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they worked great, right? But that's the crazy thing, is like, he had the number 1 defense in his first year with the Rams when none of those guys had played in his defense before, right? So, like, something definitely isn't clicking there. And I know we see all the questions about Derek Ansley taking over play calling duties, right? Staley getting fired. I mean, the thing is, like, it's still going to be Brandon Staley's defense even if he's not calling the plays. Could Derek Ansley do it better? We have no idea.
Yeah,
that's
no
the problem, right? Like, it would still be the same defense. It'd still come with probably a lot of the same problems. And I think as far as, like, the actual head coaching stuff, time management and stuff like that, Staley's actually, for the most part, over legitimate sample size, has been pretty good. So defensive play calling isn't taking away from his head coaching abilities, I don't think. But I think you could say the head coaching abilities definitely could be taking a little bit away from the play calling ability. So it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, there's just a lot of questions, and something hasn't translated. And I don't know if it's a coincidence that that was their best stretch, even though it was a stretch of terrible quarterbacks they went up against. So let's get to the next question here from Ian Rivers, who asks, do you think this defense will struggle this much all season, or is it just because they saw Tyreek Hill at his healthiest? I feel like the corners can match up better against other wide receiver rooms and hopefully help the pass rush and linebackers do their jobs easier in return. David, what do you think?
Absolutely not. I mean, they're not going to play like this every single Sunday. They definitely will look better. And trust me, if every NFL team could find a Tyreek Hill, they would go get a Tyreek Hill. They would love that. Obviously, he's one of the most dangerous weapons in the history of the NFL, quite frankly. I mean, this is a guy that borders on 2,000-yard seasons almost year in, year out.
And might get it this year,
Yeah, and he might legitimately get it this year. I mean, he is that good. And I do, one of the things you said is I think the defenders and the corners match up with other wide receiver rooms across the league. I agree with that as well. I think that they will be able to match up a little bit better. I mean, those two guys, having guys that are 4-3 on the outsides, like that, not every team has that. I mean, they all want that.
Nobody
but
has that.
Not every team has it. So I do think that they match up a lot better. Also, just this defense is way too talented to put up that type of performance week in and week out. They will figure it out. We'll just have to see how long it's going to take.
I agree with you for the most part. I mean, I think that the problem is they are going to have a lot more talented receivers coming up, right? It won't be the combination of both those guys. Like me and you talked a little bit before the show. It's like, okay, well, next week against the Vikings, not that you're looking ahead, right? But that will be the test of, okay, well, when you know who it's going to go to, you know who their biggest threat is, can you not let the guy have 11 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? Like,
exactly.
That'll be a good test. Just because the Chargers play well against, Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, it doesn't mean necessarily that the issues are fixed, but I do think that they're just still major concerns that we won't know a ton about until much later on in the season, until we see some more matchups. But I do think the pass rush, I think, will have a bounce back week this week. I do think it'll look much better than what we saw against the Dolphins, because the Dolphins or the Titans aren't really set up to run the same kind of things, obviously, that the Dolphins were able to do, especially to the pass rush. The bigger thing is going to be, can the Chargers stop the run to actually make Ryan Tannehill have to pass? But we'll get into that on the crossover episode tomorrow. But let's get to this question here from Tom Bam Luke on X, who asked, what are the chances Deion Henley actually gets run on defense once he's back? Seems like Murray as the starter is written in stone by these coaches. I wish I didn't agree with that, David. I don't know. I mean, it does seem like that a little bit to me.
It does seem like that just because we've seen it in the past where, they've drafted a player high and they've kept him on the field when he clearly doesn't deserve to be
Jerry Tillery. Yeah, we got another question about Jerry Tillery, too. Shout out to whoever asked the Jerry Tillery question. Kind of the same thing with this, right? Because Kenneth Murray is the guy that has to get yanked.
Yeah, I think you just have to hope, Daniel, that you watch and the coaches are able to see what Kenneth Murray puts on tape and know that Deion Henley does some of the things that Kenneth Murray's not doing at a higher level, and that you should obviously put him on the field because I think he's a little bit more athletic. He's better in coverage, has better instincts, and he tackles better. So I'm sure that, someone coming from my perspective who has never coached football a single day in his life and is able to see that, Deion Henley is probably a better fit on the field with Eric Kendricks, that the coaching staff is able to see that as well.
Sure, right. I mean, I think that the hard thing for me is not him versus Kenneth Murray even necessarily. It's like Kenneth Murray does feel pretty entrenched. There's nothing that Brandon Staley said at his press conference that would lead you to believe they have any problem with Kenneth Murray being in there, saying that he played winning football, basically. Deion was playing late into the last preseason game after the guys in front of him, Nick Niemann and Amen Ogbongbemiga, were out and resting, right? The problem is when we saw in training camp, the defensive rotations would not lead you to believe that Deion Henley was close to usurping Kenneth Murray as that starting guy, and he wasn't even getting in there on every second-team unit. He was a third-string linebacker in training camp, basically, rightfully or wrongfully so. I do think he does a lot of things that Kenneth Murray can't do or isn't doing at the very least. The problem is obviously he's hurt right now. We don't know when he's going to come back from the hamstring. Didn't practice at all last week. And now everything's a little stunted, right? Now everything's going to take a little bit longer. And I think the other big thing is you would still have a lot of rookie mistakes out there, right? There would still be a rookie learning curve. I think it's just your willingness to accept that to get some of the obvious kind of liabilities. I don't know if Deion Henley played and was fully healthy in this last game, I don't think he's the lowest graded linebacker on Pro Football Focus. That's just all. I mean, I don't know if you would have been great, but we're not looking for great. We're looking for better. So hopefully they can see that. Hopefully he can bring that right when he comes back. But we'll have to see. It'll definitely take a change of heart from this coaching staff. But we have many more questions to get into on this Chargers fan mail day, including Atheer's epic rant and also the Chargers' usage of their first-round pick, Quentin Johnston. And we're going to get into that coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about the Jace case from Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to take care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected, and that's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency situation. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand yourself. I think when Hurricane Hillary was kind of hitting Southern California, which I never thought I would see a hurricane hit Southern California, and it didn't really hit, but it started making me think about how unprepared I am if anything actually bad were to happen where I live. And I do have family members that really rely on certain medications to survive, which is why I was so interested in learning about the Jace case. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I also need to tell you guys about Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. I love Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun that I've had, and you can win up to $25, 25 times your money on this football season. All you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less than on their projected stats, and then place your entry. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and if you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. It's a very easy interface. I've snuck in, some really, really late projections on Monday and Sunday morning. It's always, I wake up and I'm like, okay, I need to get red zone, but I also need to get in my Prize Picks picks, right? For this weekend against the Titans, you can go with Justin Herbert more than or less than 288.5 passing yards, and you can also go with Derrick Henry getting more than or less than 88.5 rushing yards. That's a good number right there. They're going to keep him under 88.5. We will see. But all you guys have to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for that deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, David, we do have some more Chargers fan mailbags to get into, including one of our longtime loves of callers, Atheer, calling into today's show. But that's just today's show. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow because it's Crossover Thursday. And Crossover Thursday, so excited that they're back, right? We missed Crossover Thursday in the offseason, and tomorrow, Locked On Chargers meets up with Locked On Vikings, or Locked On Titans. I'm looking ahead. Chargers, please don't look ahead. Please take care of the Titans first. I'm sorry for looking ahead at Justin Jefferson. He's just
Don't you do that.
I won't, but we do have to hear from Atheer because Atheer had something to say. And we'll see if you guys end up agreeing with him because he's definitely going out there on this one.
Hi, Mr. Wade. This is Atheer. I know everybody's blaming my coach for the loss in week 1. I totally understand the defense was horrible. But to me, it's simple. Third quarter, we are up 24-20, 3rd and 1 at the 40-yard line. We're running the ball all day long, and you want to throw the football to make your quarterback happy that did not have a great game. What are we doing? What are we doing? To me, that loss, Kellen Moore taking that loss. He's the one calling the play. That ball should have been ran. We pick up a first down. We win the ball, and then we will add it to the lead. The rest will be history. Instead, we give the ball back to Miami. They came back. They take the lead. The game is over. I want to hear you and David on this.
David, that's a hot take. Atheer's coming, bringing something hot here.
It is a hot take, but I do not agree with that. I'm sorry, Atheer. I'm not going to agree with that because
rude.
part of that game plan is that Kellen Moore was the engineer behind the Chargers rushing for over 200 yards in that game, and understanding that they were going to have the opportunity.
You could probably
to do
agree
that.
though that you wish they would have ran on that 3rd and 1 though.
Yeah, I'll agree with that for sure. I mean, they were running the ball at will against the Miami Dolphins, so I'm never gonna sit here and say that I would be against that decision because they were having their way with him. So that, I agree with you on that one, Atheer.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. On that drive, so this is the important thing to realize in the context around the situation that Atheer is bringing up. The part he's talking about is when Jace Jackson got the interception in the end zone and decided to take it out to the 4-yard line, and then the Chargers, on 2nd down after getting the ball back, actually made a great play. Justin Herbert extended a play, found Keenan Allen down the sideline, who easily got the 1st down, but had an inch of his foot out of bounds on that, which set up the 3rd and 1. Which the Chargers ended up taking a sack, and then they punt. The next play, Jace Jackson gets burnt for a 35-yard touchdown, one-on-one with Tyreek Hill with no help over the top, or Derwin James not getting over there to help over the top, one of those two things. But totally avoidable situation. If there's a touchback, that doesn't happen, right, obviously. And if Keenan Allen doesn't step out of bounds, that doesn't happen. But I'm going to go ahead and blame the unit that gave up 36 and not the unit that scored 34. Like, I just think that, I mean, the Chargers scored 10 fourth-quarter points. You know, they outscored the Dolphins in the second half of this game. The only reason they were losing at halftime because of the Jace Jackson pass interference, right? So, like, they scored in the second half. They scored 10 points in the 4th quarter. Should they have gotten more? Sure. I'm not going to blame the offense for this one. I mean, it's definitely, to me, more on Brandon Staley. I can point out the positives of what the Chargers offense did easily. And also, Justin Herbert had a good game. I'm tired of this notion that he went out there
It's almost
and
70%
didn't do anything.
completion. I mean, come on, guys. Like,
It was
that's
insane.
not an
He was
efficient
incredibly
ball game.
efficient. Would I like to see him throw down the field more? Sure.
Of
But I
course.
think that's what brings up Alvin's question here for today. And he asked you, because you can always slide into David Drogemeyer's DMs at DroTalkSD on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. David, me and you disagree a lot. Alvin is David's arch nemesis, by the way, sidebar. But you never ignore my questions. I appreciate that. I love this relationship. This question, though, it might annoy you, but I don't care. LOL. Why does Keenan Allen get more screenplays than Austin Ekeler, Quentin Johnston, the Yak God, Davis, or Josh Palmer? Once again, David, thank you. So he doesn't bring up Mike Williams. Mike Williams actually had the most catches behind the line of scrimmage of any of the Chargers wide receivers. David, to me, I think it's probably too soon to make any assumptions about kind of who's going to get the most catches in these kind of situations.
Yeah, I mean, the game plan was obvious. They were trying to run the ball. They knew they were going to be able to run the ball. They knew that the Miami Dolphins were going to try to do everything they could to keep everything underneath and prevent those over the top type of plays. So, I mean, as far as why is Keenan getting it, I mean, I think you'd probably be a little bit surprised to see or to know that he had 5.7 yards per catch after the catch per catch. Yeah, 5.7 yards after catch per reception.
He almost scored a touchdown on the one screen pass that he caught.
He made two defenders miss, and he looked really good in the open field. So you can't sit there and tell me those opportunities that he got in the quick passing game that he didn't make the most out of those. Would I like to see Quentin Johnston get more of those opportunities? Sure, I would like to see that. Absolutely. I mean, you drafted him high for that very purpose, to get those yards after catch. I do think that is going to happen. I expect that to happen probably as soon as this Sunday against the Titans.
Yeah, I do. I would agree with you. I mean, I think this had much more to do with game plan. They did try to do a little, not a screen, but a little shovel pass to Quentin Johnston behind the line of scrimmage that ended up going for a 2-yard loss. The one gadget play they ran with Darius Davis actually worked out pretty good. But I think
it looked good.
We don't really know what these guys' roles are going to be at this point. It's kind of too soon. But I do think that, overall, you want the ball in the hands of Quentin Johnston after the catch more than you would want it from Keenan Allen. Because Keenan Allen at this point is not a guy that's making a ton of people miss. Maybe you heard us say that and made two people miss on his way to an almost touchdown there. So we did have one more question that we wanted to get into from Andrew, who said, do you expect the running game to be as dominant against the Titans, or should the passing game take over based on this matchup? This is a great question for Crossover Thursday tomorrow. But I would say, though, this is going to be a game we are hoping Justin Herbert lights things up a little bit more, because we think it's going to be much tougher sledding against the Titans, who allowed 2.6 yards per carry in the first game against the Saints. So much stiffer competition on that line, much better test for Kellen Moore, but more of a chance for Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert to light up the scoreboard through the air. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you check David out tomorrow on the Chargers Crossover. Locked on Chargers, Locked on Titans. Super excited about that, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And you can also find the show every day on our social media. You can find us on X at Locked On LAC or me at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD. You can also call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. Get your 30-second question in there or hit us up on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But back with you guys tomorrow with Crossover Thursday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.